I hope you enjoyed the conversations part of this segment. Now we are moving to connections. In connections, we are going to talk about three important things: the why and what of networking, how do you build connections, and finally, do what the big guys do when it comes to networking. So let's get started. Before we enter into the networking aspect of it, let's understand that building connections does not always have to be from a professional network perspective. You build connections because these people are a part of your life, they are a part of your circle, so that you can have great conversations. Because when you have great connections, you don't just build a network of people, you are also growing and upskilling yourself by meeting a lot of other people, by hearing a lot of different perspectives. If you're in your own bubble, you just believe in what you say, in what you do, then it becomes a little difficult working with the bigger world, all kinds of people out there. So it is important that you have conversations, learn from others, look at how people think differently, work differently, and that will help you grow as a person. With that, let's jump into why do we need to network. Now, like I said, networking is just not about this person would help me get a job, so maybe I should reach out to this person. I need help from this person at work. I think this person might be able to get me good leads or clients, etc., etc. It's not about that. It's about building and strengthening relationships that you have with people. Connections, that's the key word. To get fresh ideas and perceptions, to get fresh ideas, information, perspectives, getting access to opportunities that you never knew existed, and not with the sole intention of an opportunity, but also to get advice and support. And ultimately, when you speak to different people from different areas, you advance your own skill set. And these are valid reasons to build your network, whether or not it is a professional one. Before we get into networking a little bit more in detail, I wanted to clear this confusion between small talk and networking. People often confuse the two. So let's understand, do we really need small talk, or do we just need to understand what networking is? So here's what networking is. It's the process of interacting with people to exchange information, to develop your professional or your social connections. It's about connecting and building relationships. Whereas small talk is just chit chat. It's just the conversational, talking about the weather to just pass the time. It's the kind of conversation where you don't really want to talk to someone, but you have to, maybe because you're in that situation. So now you tell me, do you think small talk is something that is required in networking? It's not. What you need to learn is how to have conversations, which is what we did in the entire last segment. So networking is an extension of conversation. You have learned how to have good conversations. Now all you need to do is learn how to use them to build your network and connections. So how do you get started with networking? So we're going to look at three aspects of how do you get started with networking. The first and foremost is situations and opportunities. Basically, whenever you come across a situation or an opportunity to help somebody, help without the intent of getting help in return. Now that is what it is. You are not helping somebody in the intent that someday this person is going to help them. Help them because you want to, because you choose to. Next, this might be a little difficult for the introverts here, but do attend events that you normally don't, so that you get to meet a lot of different kind of people, and this usually opens up your network. This opens up your connections, and you get to meet a lot of new people with newer ideas and perspectives. Social networks are a great way. Nowadays, all of us are mostly at home and we use a lot of the online space. So social media is definitely a great place to find new connections and to keep building them. Another method is also the journalist method. Whenever you want to learn something, when you want to know something about an area that you're not very familiar with, try the journalist method and go to the expert. Go to the experts and build connections with them, and this way you are going to get the right information, you're going to get a better perspective, and this will advance your skill set. And finally, go back to your weaker connections. All these people whom you have met for the last few years of your life, go back to them. People whom you've lost touch with, get back and start building on those connections, strengthening them so that your network is rich and strong. These are not just the only ways, these are 5 great ways to do this. But I would highly suggest that whatever opportunity you get, whatever the situation may be, learn, maybe just make one connection at a time, and soon your network will definitely grow. And now that you've met a person or have an opportunity to start this conversation or to build this connection, what you need to do is use the process of conversations that we have learned and build this connection. Use the topics that we have discussed I'm going to add a little bit more in the coming slide, but use all of those skills that we have learned on how to have great conversations and do exactly that with a little bit of change in terms of topics. When it comes to networking at a professional level, there are some things that you should talk about. You can talk about the event that you're in, the platform that you are in. You can talk about the work that you do. You can talk about your areas of interest, if there's anything common, if there's anything complementary. There could be anything that's common between the two of you, or the current events that are happening. These are all great choice of topics in addition to the topics that we've already mentioned. But there are also some things that you should try to avoid, because this usually does not help get you in the best light and does not actually improve the strength of your connection. Which is talking about yourself, which is essentially tooting your own horn, right? The next is controversial stuff. Now, if you're a person who enjoys doing that just for the heck of it, then you need to be okay with the fact that you may or may not end up having a great connection or building a great connection. But ideally, avoid controversial stuff as much as you can, because this majorly tends to create more conflict than connections. Work complaints, well, there is never a good time to really talk about work complaints unless it's with your near and dear ones. And then personal life and gossip is definitely a big no-no, because you don't know whom you're going to meet. You never know if you're going to work with this person at some point in your life, and you don't want to create a bad image of yourself with people. So these are certain topics that you should avoid definitely when it comes to networking at a professional level. So now we know what are the situations and opportunities we need to use. We know how to actually have a conversation, and we know what to say and what not to say. Now look at how do the big guys do this when it comes to networking. So these are some tips that I'm going to share with you to slightly change the way that you connect with people, and hope that this definitely helps you in having great conversations when you're networking. So instead of asking people, what do you do? Especially in a situation like this, when there's pandemic running, you don't know what's happening with their work life. So in this situation, it's always best to ask, how do you spend your time? Because then this person has the opportunity to talk about whatever they want, rather than feeling cornered to talk about work. Maybe this person does not really have a great work life, or maybe this person does not have a job. So it's best to try and keep it neutral by asking them, how do you spend your time? Whenever you're introducing yourself, you can always do this in a way where you can tell them how would you or your work benefit them, by not being salesy or being pushy, but by introducing yourself in a way that tells them, I have something that might be of interest to you, kind of a manner. The next thing, instead of saying, I love what you're wearing, you could say that you look amazing in that dress, or you look great in that color. So when you're complimenting or when you're telling them something, it could be you. Use more you and less of I, or less more general statements. One important thing, don't say me too. When someone is sharing, when someone is saying something that is maybe very personal to them, very deep, something they've been through, this is not the time for you to jump in and say me too. Don't be the me too person here. Let this person share, empathize, relate, but do not interrupt. You don't need to take the limelight away. If you see yourself using a couple of words over and over again, maybe it's time to consider a new choice of words. The next thing is, no thank you without saying why you're thanking the other person. So thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your hospitality. So what exactly are you thanking them for? No naked thank yous. And finally, smile exclusively. It's great to smile at everybody, but to make people feel special, you can have an exclusive smile just for those people whom you really enjoy the connection with. So think about it. Maybe you can come up with an exclusive smile for ones who've created that impact. And with that, we are done with our networking aspect. Now, networking is not as complex as you think it is, because it's more in the doing of it rather than in the knowing of it. Now that you know what are the situations, the opportunities, how do you have the conversations, what to talk, what not to say, all you need to do is start doing this. Start going out there, meeting people, and building that connection and building the network. It's rightly said, networking is more about farming, because it's all about giving without the intent of asking for something always in return, or without the intent that the other person has to help you. It's just by giving, because when you give, you always get back. So I hope this entire segment on networking helped you. With that, we are done with the second section, where we've spoken about conversations, and we've spoken about how to use those conversation skills or the conversation process to help you build connections. In the next section, we are going to look at the skills that are going to help you become better at these conversations. And I'll see you in the next section.